Yeah, so pretty spacious session today, and it is a little bit Easter themed. Easter's one of those things that for some people it means a lot, for some people it means nothing. But we've got to acknowledge that it's a specific time of year, right? And there have been things that have been celebrated in that time through the ages, right? Whether it's religious or whether it's pagan or whether it's, just ancient ceremonies. It is a time of year that signifies something to a lot of people, has signified something to a lot of people through the years. So that's why I was called to or received the information to do an Easter Sunday special titled Cracking Open. And I think it's really pertinent. It's timely and it's pertinent to the lives that we're all creating, right? Because cracking open, it's like you can't really do a lot without cracking open on some level, right? There's not a lot that you can create without cracking open on some level. And there's no accidents, of course. In the CYD debrief that we just ran, one of the women said something, and I loved it. She used this analogy. She said, "Otherwise, it's just the same meat with different gravy, right? It's just we're just spreading the same shit, making it look different." And there are a lot of people that have done this work that are caught up in that. Not as many as in the general population, but in the general population, there's tons of people, and I'm sure you notice them now. There are tons of people who are just revolving around the same patterns and possibly not aware of it, or possibly aware of it, but really having absolutely no idea how to get off, right? And often what happens is that people get so caught up in trying to solve the pattern, trying to solve the puzzle of life, that they miss the whole point of life. So that's what today is about, right? Today is about the fact that you can't really create anything without destruction on some level. That's today's premise. There's no creation without some level of destruction, right? Because everything's potential energy. Everything is potential. And if you're a bit of a science nerd like I am or was, or yeah, I still am a bit of a closet. Would you say I'm a science nerd, Ed? Yeah, okay. I'm still a bit of a closet science nerd. You'll know about potential energy, right? You'll know that there's potential energy. So let's say this is how they explained it to us in physics, in high school physics, right? Let's say you take a ball to the top of a hill, it gains potential energy, and then that potential energy can be transformed to kinetic energy when the ball rolls down the hill, right? It's physics, it's nature. So everything really is potential. And unless you unlock that potential in some way, for example, by giving that ball a push, unless you take an action to unlock that potential, it just stays locked up, right? So if you use that analogy, if you take that ball, if you use energy to take that ball to the top of the hill, and then you never actually make it roll back down, so that it might power something or so that it might have some kind of an effect, then you've wasted the energy that you've put into it, right? And that's not what we want. What we want is to make sure that we unlock the whole potential, make sure that all the energy that we put into things is directed so that the potential that's in us gets unlocked, right? Because what happens when we don't do that? What's the danger of not doing that? The danger is that you live a life that's not about what life is supposed to be about, right? So the danger is that you end up living a life that's empty, that's got the wrong focus. And there are tons of people millions, possibly billions of people who are living their lives as though life is all about dramas, as though life is all about solving dramas and trying to work things out, right? And I know we know better, but we're still human, right? That's still our default that we go to. So today we're just going to explore the topic of cracking open a bit. And it's going to be interactive. So I'm not going to be talking all the time. We will do an exercise, and I'd love to hear from you. Now, what does it mean to you, this whole theme of cracking open and potential energy? Right, so that's where we're heading, right? But before we formally begin diving into that, let's set an intention. Now that you've heard what today's about, now that you've got a bit of an idea, just take a moment to both come into this space and be present with the people here, with all of us here. It's awesome if you can have your camera on, because of course then other people can see you and you're physically in the space. If it's not possible, if you're in a situation where that's not, I don't know, if you're getting changed or whatever, or if your background's distracting, if you're driving and your background's distracting, then keep it off. And of course, your energy's still here. We'll know that your energy's here. Anyway, so take a moment to come into the space, connect with the others in the space, connect with yourself, and connect with your intention for this session, because as we know, you will get what you intend to get. So I'll just give you a moment to do that. Right, and while you're there, of course, choose to be of service to your highest good, and choose to be of service to this space, to everyone in the space, so that we can have a really cool, fun, loving, open experience that's based on truth and what we're all here to create. So let's do it. So yes, cracking open. Where do I start? I'm going to start with the foundations. So, what I often see in the personal development field, and even here, even in this space, because we're all human, right? We're all human. Even with my clients, people that have been in this work for a while still do this. What we often do is we go to create something new. And we go about it in a way that's based on the old foundations. Right? This is what we do. And we don't realize it. We don't necessarily realize it. Where you go to, if you imagine trying to build, let's say you bought a block of land, right? And you go, oh, I'd love to, I love this place. I love the energy of this block of land. You can imagine how big it is, where it is, and you go, wow, this is exactly where I want to live, right? This is what I would love. This is what I want. This is where I want to build my house, my home. And just imagine that on this block of land, there's already a house. Someone's already built a house, but it's not the house that you'd love. Right? It's somebody else's house. It's too small maybe, or it's the wrong shape. It doesn't have the rooms configured how you'd like. The ceiling's not high enough, whatever it is, right? It's just not right. You just know that it's not right. It's not your house. It's not your dream house. It's not how you'd love it to be, right? And you can imagine this being an analogy, right? For you, for your home being your heart. So you've come to this place You've got this dream block of land. It's where you want it. And somebody else has built a house on it. Now, what a lot of people do is come into a house like that and go, okay, it's already been built, right? It's already solid, it's a structure, it's safe, someone's already put energy into it. It doesn't quite suit me, but what I'll do is I'll reconfigure the rooms, right? So I'll take this wall out, I'll move the furniture, I'll make the lounge room into a bedroom, and I'll take the bathroom out and I'll do this, but you're still trying to work within the walls of somebody else's design, right? Of somebody else's house. Some people don't even go as far as removing the walls, they just go, I'll just live with it, right? Because it's already set up and it's here, right? I've got somewhere to live. It feels safe. It feels safe. So what we do is we end up building ourselves on foundations that were put there by somebody else, right? Because if you remember, our beliefs are created when we're 0 to 5 years old, right? So what we often do is build our house, build ourselves on the foundations. And if you imagine this, right, the picture that I'm sharing now, this is what we're doing. This is what we do as a default. We've got this cookie cutter thing. We've got one of our 9 personality types that we've chosen. And we go, all right, there's my cookie cutter personality. I'm just going to fit into that. And I might rearrange the walls sometimes. I might put an extra room on. Wow, how would that be if I put an extra room, And it just doesn't work, right? Because we're still working with the same foundations, with the same limiting foundations, right? So I'm going to pause here and let's have a little bit of a share just from that analogy. What's occurring to you? What's coming to you on the basis of that? And then we'll continue. On what level can you relate? All right, we'll go Robin and then Faith.
Hi, everyone. Beata, when you were talking a bit earlier, it's interesting because thought is called the first bit of energy. So and thought takes form. So when we get that initial idea, it comes into form by thinking about it. But it's so true that even after, because many of us who come to William's work have landed here after doing so much other personal growth and development. And even though we do years and years of it, we're still trying to be really genius, really creative. But in fact, we're bringing all these ideas that other people have said throughout our lives. And it's very hard to find that very genuine, original thinking of our own and cut loose from all of the frameworks that are already there. So, yeah, but to have that inspired thinking, that albedo, and to capture that is probably our best place to even begin, to just wipe everything off the map and just begin there.
Good one. Great share. Thanks, Robin. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Faith?
When I checked in what to share, what seemed true was to just, the heart has no bounds. Yeah. The heart has no bounds.
Powerful. Yeah. Yeah. No foundations needed, right? No set foundations. So yeah, absolutely. We do have certain premises, foundations that we work with, but they're not set in concrete, and they're certainly not like this, right? Yeah. No bounds. Good one. Thanks, Faith. What else? Sonia, and then Miklos.
Hi, everyone. What I'm getting is that it's like we're creating a upon our existing or old foundations, which are our old stories and our old beliefs. We're sort of using them as the foundation to build upon, and no matter what else we put on top, that's what's underneath. That's what's that's unstable, because that's, we're trying to build a new life on top of an old life rather than removing the old. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's spot on, right? We're trying to build a new life on top of foundations that were built way, way back on top of an old life. And we might make it 3-story, right? We might make it bigger, we might make it whatever, but it's still limited by the previous structure. It's still limited by a structure that we put in when we were really young, really, really young, way too young to be building foundations for the rest of our lives. Yeah, thanks, Sonia. Good one. Miklos, and then Joanne, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. What came to my mind, I mean, everything that you just said is really, really relatable in my life, and I see how it works out or how it ends out. What's interesting and why I'm interested in this is that I see that I've been building a lot of the time on a wrong foundation or the pre-existing foundation, let's call it this way. And I see the imperative, what you said, is that in some form of destruction. I mean, you have to get rid or, just plan different than that you had before. So it's completely relatable, and I see it. What really comes up for me is, on the other hand, is as I'm actually sometimes in the middle of refurbishing even my apartment, etc., is that fear when you start, the first blow with a hammer or anything, and then you see, okay, now I'm destructing this one, but will I be able to reconstruct something that is going to be at least as usable, like with the house? I mean, I already have a roof at least. So this is this dilemma of, okay, I'm destroying this one, but whether I'll be able to reconstruct anything that is meaningful. Obviously, in a sense of fundamental beliefs, this connects to capacity somewhat and even power. So it's still the wrong foundation when you're pondering about these things while you are doing the destruction. But my question is, if I may, just at the beginning of this session, is that what I've noticed, and I've been actually pondering on this, is that just to take an example of Williams, in his book, he actually relates his story about living for 10 years and going down and lower and lower in terms of he actually sliding until he was on his deathbed before actually starting to rebuild his life based on his self-realization experience. And it's a story that actually comes in many forms. A lot of spiritual masters talks about it. A lot of people actually went to the rock bottom. And what sometimes frightens me with this work and in general in life is that absolutely necessary? And instinctively, my answer is yes, in one way or another. You have to hit rock bottom, but what hit rock bottom is, it might be different from everybody, or it might not be necessary for certain creations, but it's still something, just based on whatever that you said, and the whole setting of this theme is this underlying fear that whether it's necessary to really dig down to the foundations, literally destroying everything, and having that question whether you be able to rebuild your life or anything that you want to create. That's all that came up for me. It might not be too inspiring, but it's something that definitely came up for me.
Brilliant share. Thanks, Miklos, and great insights, right? Because that's exactly what happens. It's that fear that comes up. The fear is what drives us to go back to what we know best, right? That fear is what drives us to go back to what we know best. Now, so you're in the perfect place, because that's exactly what we're going to explore is, how do we go about creating the new and bypassing the fear, or what do we do with that fear, right? So that's what we're going to explore today. Now, as to your question, for a lot of people, hitting rock bottom is a stimulus to try and look for something, right? And in my experience, what often happens is that when someone has hit rock bottom, then it's not that they don't have fear anymore, but they're like, all right, what could be worse than this, right? So they actually take action towards what they want to create, because they're like, well, I've got nothing to hang on to. So it's like their house has already been destroyed. So they're like, well, there's only one way, right? When I work with clients, the clients, and I've shared this before, the clients that are actually in some ways more difficult to work with are the ones whose lives are okay, right? Because they're comfortable enough. They're like, okay, yeah, I'm doing all right. I've got a decent job. I've got a decent income. I've got a roof over my head. I'm doing okay. So it's not that it's necessary to hit rock bottom. Absolutely not. It's absolutely not necessary to hit rock bottom to create something new. It's just that in some ways, people that have hit rock bottom, well, they don't have the fear of the new, because it's going to be better than whatever they've got now, right? That's the thing, that they've got nothing to lose. When you get to that point where you've got nothing to lose, well, then you go for it, right? Then you go for it. Let's say you're running, right? You're being chased and you're running from a pack of tigers. I don't know why it's always a pack of tigers that comes to mind, but you're running from a pack of tigers and you come to the edge of the end of the road, right? And there's a cliff, but you can't see over it to see how far it is if you jump, right? Are you going to survive if you jump? Are you going to jump into a river? Are you going to jump into a pillow factory as they do in cartoons, right? Or are you going to jump to your death? Now, the person that's more likely to take the leap is the one who's really doesn't want to be eaten by a tiger, right? So when you're faced with that choice, you're like, okay, I'm just going to jump, right? Because what's behind me isn't that great. But if you're being chased by a bunch of fluffy monkeys that are really cute, then you might go, I don't know, do I jump or do I not? Right? And this is what happens for people. They come to trainings, whatever it is, whatever personal development, and then when it comes to applying, they go, oh, I don't know, it sounded good in the training, right? And I hear that other people have had results, but is it going to work for me? Is it going to work for me? Am I going to get those results? And this is why it's important to remember that you don't have to trust, you don't have to believe, you just have to focus on the results. Right? This is something that was shown to me when I expressed that, when I said, look, but the new, it's really scary, right? Because I don't know how it's going to be. And my coach, William, said, what do you mean you don't know how it's going to be? Aren't you creating it? And it was my duh moment, right? It was my, okay, yeah, right, right, I'm creating it, right? If I'm in this work, then I'm working with the premise that we create it all and that we create what we focus on. So it's not that scary because you know exactly what you're going to create, right? You're going to create your land of plenty. That's what you're going to create. It's inevitable. If that's where your focus is, that's inevitable. Yeah, so thanks, Miklos. That was a great discussion that you kicked off. Is there anything else you wanted to say to that after my comment?
Well, actually, yes, I wholeheartedly agree and see that. And for some reason, maybe because I'm pretty much in the same situation, I see this difficulty of moving from a relatively good life. I have pretty much most of the things that I need or want, but still I want more. And this is why I'm here, obviously, rather than sitting in my comfortable life. And just one of my friends in London just pops into my head, and she said she had she'd done the work with William, and she has at least 7 other degrees or something in coaching and whatnot, but she's not doing it. And every time when I ask her, so what is going on? Why don't you do it? Why don't you move away and do your Land of Plenty or whatever? And she said that, shit is not shitty enough. Sorry for my language, but this is what she says. And which means for me, relating to my original question, is that she hasn't reached rock bottom yet. So there's no actual motivation for her to get out of that. But I can see, I mean, she can tell also that she's not happy, she's not satisfied in what she is. And it's really relatable, because I find myself in the same situation many times, or found myself many times in life. And this is why I'm here. So actually, thank you for having this session.
And the question is, do you want to wait until you hit shit bottom?
No, not at all.
Because
no.
that's what happens, right? That's what happens when we don't listen to our soul, when we don't listen to our heart. Then eventually we will destroy the life that we have. Eventually we will destroy it, because we have there's soul tension, right? So the question is, some people choose to wait until they hit rock bottom. I would advise against that. I would advise against that.
I would also, especially for my life.
Yeah.
However, I find really inspiring William's story, because in one way or another, when I read it, I feel somewhat relieved when you hit rock bottom and you just literally have nothing else to do, just to rise up or do something different that you've been doing in your life. So in one way, it's really inspiring. No wonder I think that he included in his book. But I wouldn't say it's pleasant.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I'll share my own story. And I see your hand up, Faith, so we'll go Joanne and Faith in a moment. But my own story was, when I got into this work, I got a phone call. I was working as an optometrist for a long time, which some of you know, and I'd sold my business. I did go through a tumultuous time during that time, but then I had a place to live. I had a lovely unit by the beach, and I got a phone call from a person that I worked with a long time ago. Before I started my own business, I worked with this optometrist, a really awesome optometrist, great guy, great practice, great staff, really stable. And he rang me and he said, I'd really love, my optometrist just left. She followed her fiance to Adelaide. I've always wanted you to work for me. Would you come and work for me full time for really good money? Really good money. And there was a moment, right? Do I say yes? Or do I say no and follow this path with no income, no qualifications, right? And it's a choice. In that moment, I made that choice. And that year, I did not renew my optometry registration. I'm not going back to that. It wasn't, I've done my bit in that. I got what I needed out of it. And it was the reason I sold my business was that it was very obvious that it wasn't my heart's calling, and the biggest regret, there's a book called it's written by I'm having trouble remembering, so I'm looking at Ed, and I won't spend too long on it, but there's a book called by a book written by a palliative care nurse, and she compiled the 5 biggest regrets of the dying, and the number 1 regret is to not live their heart's truth. I don't think that was the words, but that's the biggest regret of people on their deathbed. So I don't want to be one of those people, right? I'm all in. And I had no income. I got a coach and followed on from there, and I've created a large part of what I set out to do. But yeah, it is terrifying, and we explore. It can be terrifying if we choose for it to be, or it can be exciting. Anxiety or anticipation. What do you choose? Yeah. So we'll explore a bit more of that as we go along. Thanks, Miklos. Great discussion, because I'm sure it applies to a lot of people here. Let's hear from you, Joanne.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Beata, for putting this on. It's a great topic, personally, and I think for many of us. But what I was really feeling into as you were speaking is that when we are going for something new, and yet we can cycle back to the same ending of something. It's the same cycle that we have created so many times, and we can unconsciously really think that we are creating something new, but these foundations haven't changed. Those foundations are the same. We haven't stepped out of them. And what I was also feeling into is that unconsciously we are personally hoping that the end result changes me before I have to change to create it. And I think that keeps me, at least, in those old foundations. The power is outside of me somewhere, instead of me, as you said, of what William said, you know what you're creating because you're creating it. It's, will this creation create me? Will it create my new foundations? And that is kind of where I am personally at the moment as well. So this is very apt.
Yeah,
That's what-
perfect. Of course it's apt. That's why you're here. There's no accidents. There are no accidents. Yeah, thanks, Joanne. Yeah, that's yeah, can't add anything to that. Perfectly said. Beautiful. Thank you. And let's hear from you, Faith.
As Miklos, I hope I said his name right, sorry if I didn't, was sharing, the law of polarity kept coming into my mind from the Kybalion. And, you know, we have that choice. We can hit rock bottom. Chose that path. I chose the hard path. It was very, very painful. I'm out of it now. But I'll tell you what, if you want to create a mess, it'll be very magnificent. It'll be like a dumpster fire, multiple dumpster fires and a landfill with the disco ball. So I've done that. Now I'm creating a lot of great things. I wish I hadn't created a dumpster fire disco ball party.
When you're
now
a powerful creator, you can create a powerful ball of shit, right?
Yeah, but now the beautiful thing is with the choice too, is it's all just lead. You know, what I did was I created all this lead, and now instead of functionally, you know, turning lead to gold rhythmically, I oscillated and I was like, okay, here's this big ball of lead I've created, and now I'm, you know, massively creating gold from it. It's not the most efficient way, but it was the way that I chose. And so it's like, even if you do hit rock bottom, you can find your way out of it. It is very painful, don't advise it, but at the same time, it's you know, like it will be momentum. So if you're there right now, don't shame yourself, because at any moment, all the crap you're creating is just going to be gold, all of it. And, you know, it's like they say the master sits on top of the pendulum and does not, you know, when the pendulum goes back, does not react, does not act, does not make a decision from that place. But I would also say, you know, it's like when you're in the backswing, right? That's where you notice and you're like, oh, this is gold actually. And it's really just that mindset shift, right? Because that's all for me that I've learned is alchemy is, you know, your lead is gold.
Yeah.
And the process of making the fixed volatile and the volatile fixed is, you know, yes, a physical change, but it's also in the albedo, in the mind, it's a change as well. So it's both. So, yeah, so that's what I felt true to share.
Beautiful.
So.
Thanks, Faith. Thanks for your vulnerable share. And one thing I wanted to say to that is another thing to not assume, because we're still in the antithesis part of the session, right? So how do we get it wrong? One thing to not assume is that when you hit rock bottom, you're always going to create gold. And I'm not saying that that's the case with you, Faith, but I've done that. I hit rock bottom and I thought I was creating something different. This was before I came into natural success work. And I found myself in the similar patterns. I was like, oh, hang on, some of these things are looking really familiar, but I didn't know what to do with it, right? But there's also this misperception, because a lot of people, when they hit rock bottom, end up then, you know, transformed. The energy gets transmutated, some people assume that if they hit rock bottom, then they will also become transformed. It's not a given, right? It's not a given. It's not a given that if you hit rock bottom, you're not going to come back and start repeating the same patterns. It takes a lot of consciousness and a lot of will. Fiona. And then Frilly. And then we'll move on.
Thanks, Beata, and all those who shared before me. What was obvious to me as you're just discussing, yes, you can wallow at the bottom for far too long, and kind of, you know, making it almost, you know, have fun of being in the shit, in the mud. But before that, what I wanted to share was the concept that came to me, the story of the axe. And, you know, the farmer had an axe, and one day the handle broke, so he put a new handle on the axe, and off he went chopping his wood and whatnot again. And then a little while later, the head of the axe broke, and so he put a new head on the axe. And when you think about it, that's a whole new axe now. But he didn't have to destroy the axe in one go. I think that's where I'm going with this concept, is that, you know, that you don't, that's where you, like you're saying, you don't have to go to rock bottom. You can kind of, you know, you can renovate one half of the house and then the other half of the house, or you can put the new handle on, and then a little while later you can put the new head on the axe and have a new foundation, have a new approach, have a new direction. And yeah, I wanted to share that image that came to me while we were talking.
Yeah, great point. Exactly. There needs to be, that's why I said that there needs to be some destruction on some level, right? But yeah, absolutely. It doesn't need to be detonated. You know, some of us, I know here, because I know some of you, did do that and totally detonated our lives, right? Sometimes people think that that's the only way, but it absolutely isn't. You can absolutely get yourself into a different form of energy, a different way of being without a tragic destruction, right? Destruction doesn't have to be tragic. Yeah. Thanks, Fiona. Frilly.
Okay, so I spent a long time destroying my life. Yeah, totally. I think I cried solid for 2 years, and was the victim. Why me? How did this happen? And just wallowed in that, and it became part of who I was. And all the time I'm doing William's work. So I've been right through to mastery with him. However, not doing very well mentally through that whole process. And I can clearly remember the moment, or the moments, or the day. I don't have a date, but I remember living through that thought of, I've lost everything. There is nothing left of me. Everything that I held near and dear to my heart has been taken from me, and I pretty much have nothing else left. I felt like just this empty shell. And then I went around after that, because that wasn't enough for me. I went around after that, and then I started shedding all my friends and all the things that I did in life, like willingly, knowingly, taking out everything, until the only thing left was my bare center, just me, the core of me. And then after that, I did the leap of faith. Right, nothing left, absolutely no one, nothing. Just me, the core of me. Now I'm going to jump into, I'm going to let go of all the things that I thought were precious, because they've left me, they're gone. And I'm not going to worry about any of the shit that I've spent my whole life worrying about, and immerse myself into William's work. And I've never looked back. It's just been such a, now I look back on that moment and I'm thinking, you know, what a blessing all that was, that it just cleared all the crap out of me and opened the way, opened my head, my heart, particularly my heart, to going forward. Yeah, my head's following. Yeah, it's taking a bit to catch up, but yeah, it's It's been just a beautiful unfolding for me. Slow, steady, not rushing into it, and building on my foundation, because I've had to build from scratch again with
Yeah.
pretty much nothing to build onto and nobody really encouraging me to do it. And yeah, so even just getting this far has been just amazing and joyful. I just can't, gratitude for everything that's come my way since that moment. There you go.
Lovely. Thanks. Thanks, Shirley. Beautiful share. And thanks again for being vulnerable.
Mm.
It's yeah, it's always helpful and serves the space and serves others when we can share from the heart and go, yeah, this is what happened. What I really loved in what you said was I let go of everything that I held precious. Right? Because we can, it's that Gollum thing, precious, we can hold on to things so preciously that in the end mean nothing. That deathbed thing,
Yep.
when you're on your deathbed, are you going to really be worrying about that? So it's, yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Shirley.
You're welcome.
All right, well, let's move on. So yes, the whole thing of distraction, right? And I'm going to use some visual cues because I think that it's just so powerful to see it, right? So we've got these foundations, and of course, when they demolish a building, right? They demolish it. And as Fiona said, we don't need to do it all at once, but at some point, we're gonna have to do this. We're gonna have to get all our stuff and take it out, put it in neat little bags and just take it out, have it there. Perhaps be aware of it, we don't go, oh, it never existed or it doesn't exist. It's there. But we need to bring the big diggers in, right? We need to bring in the big guns and really get vulnerable and really at some point those foundations are going to have to come up to the surface. That's the main thing we need to remember. Right? At some point, we're going to have to up those foundations because then we've got a blank slate, right? And we can design our house, our life, how we want it. And that's the only way. When there's other foundations there, it's like it's never quite going to fit, right? It's always going to be compromised on some level. And when I was tuning into this session, I'm also in a property group, right? And we talk about, who knows what KDRB stands for in property development? Knock down, rebuild. Right? Knock down, rebuild. So I Googled it. Why would you knock down, rebuild? Right? Good old Google. Why knock down, rebuild? And one of these companies had the most brilliant statement. Right? So why would you knock down, rebuild rather than renovating the house that's already there? A knockdown rebuild allows you to start fresh with a home of your dreams without the hassle of relocating to a new area. Enjoy the freedom of designing and building a home that's functional. Notice the word functional as opposed to dysfunctional, energy efficient. We talk about action steps, and something that I talk about in my Applied Magic course coming up, 20% of effort, 80% results, right? So functional, energy efficient, beautiful, and completely in line with your lifestyle, so the life that you want to create, all for less than the cost of a renovation project. Right, so I'll read that again. A knockdown rebuild allows you to start fresh with a home of your dreams without the hassle of relocating. Enjoy the freedom of designing and building a home that's functional, energy efficient, beautiful, and completely in line with your lifestyle. And all for less than the cost of a renovation project. How brilliant is that? So do we want to renovate? Do we want to clear our beliefs, clear our chakras, whatever it is, do we just want to renovate the old selves, or do we actually want to knock down, rebuild? The cost is less. The cost of knocking down and rebuilding is less, as has already been spoken about, right? Because the cost of renovating or trying to renovate ourselves and just become a better version of the same old, the cost of that is that we don't get to live our heart. And because of soul tension, quite often the cost can be that our life does detonate, right? Because we create that too. So all of us here who have had a life detonation experience, who do you think created that? I know I created mine, right? Because of my soul tension, right? Because I needed to, well, I thought I needed to do that to move forward. Right? So absolutely, the cost of taking those foundations up is much less than of trying to renovate, right? Of trying to make that thing that doesn't quite fit, whether it's a home, a relationship, friendships, as Freely said, just cleansing away. Actually, we don't really need to cleanse them away. They fall away naturally. So things that no longer serve us. So trying to fit our lives into things that no longer serve us is like doing a renovation, right? As opposed to living our lives, focusing on what truly matters. Those things just fall away naturally. We don't actually have to detonate anything. It just naturally falls away. That job that doesn't serve, the moment you start to focus, truly focus, and go for the life that you would love, you can guarantee that that job's going to fall away, or whatever it is, right? That no longer serves you, that doesn't serve the new way. So I'm going to, using all sorts of props today, I'm going to read a bit out of a book. And this is, again, very timely. Ed's coach recommended, was it your coach that recommended? No. Oh, Ed found this book. Okay, it's The Complete Enneagram, 27 Paths to Greater Self-Knowledge. It's pretty cool. It's like an expanded version of Enneagram. But anyway, it's got this passage in here, which is really cool. And we were listening to it on audiobook, and I heard the first bits and went, I've got to get the hard copy. So I'm going to read it out. It's not very long. And again, just, hold your intention, be in the space and listen to this. And then we'll have a bit of a share about what lands for you with that. So it's from a book called The Wisdom Way of Knowing by Cynthia Berjot. I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, The Wisdom Way of Knowing. So the author of this book quotes another book, which I'm going to read. So in this book, yeah, I'll just start. So it goes like this. Once upon a time, in a land, I'm getting there, once upon a time, in a not so far away land, there was a kingdom of acorns, nestled at the foot of a grand old oak tree. A kingdom of acorns, nestled at the foot of a grand old oak tree. Since the citizens of this kingdom were modern, fully westernized acorns, they went about their business with purposeful energy. And since they were midlife baby boomer acorns, they engaged in a lot of self-help courses. There were seminars called Getting All You Can Out of Your Shell. There were woundedness and recovery groups for acorns who had been bruised in their original fall from the tree. There were spas for oiling and polishing those shells, and various acornopathic therapies to enhance longevity and well-being. One day, in the midst of this kingdom, there suddenly appeared a naughty little stranger, apparently dropped out of the blue by a passing bird. He was capless and dirty, making an immediate negative impression on his fellow acorns. And crouched beneath the oak tree, he stammered out a wild tale. Pointing upward at the tree, he said, "We are that." He pointed at the tree and said, "We are that." Delusional thinking, obviously, the other acorns concluded. But one of them continued to engage him in conversation. "So, tell us, how would we become that tree?" "Well," he said, pointing downward, "it has something to do with going into the ground and cracking open the shell." "Insane," they responded. "Totally morbid. Why? Then we wouldn't be acorns anymore." How brilliant is that? And I'd already had the theme cracking open and I heard that and went, wow, how good is that? How good is that? So what did we get out of that? Let's have a little chat. Let's have a little chat about acorns and the oak tree. It's landing, huh? Aileen. And then Fiona.
Just that we don't really truly see ourselves. We don't see our potential. We see same old all around us. And we think, oh, we have to fit in. We have to do this, do that to fit in with others. And we don't think we can step out of the box to be something unique, to be special, because no one else is doing it. So you think, oh, I don't think I could do that, you know, and it's sort of like, so yeah, it's sort of like it's sort of like it becomes no one else is thinking that, and everyone else would be telling you you're stupid to do that, which often happens. You know, people go, "You're stupid if you want to do that," blah blah blah. There's, you know, you can't do it, and so it's hard for us to break out of our shells and try something new and to do something new, because, you know, and William tells that story of, you know, Labrador told him he was stupid to try and do something new and to create something, and they're going, no, it's, you know, that hasn't been done before, you know. But it's where our magic is. You know, we can be this beautiful tree that we don't think we are.
Yeah. Why would you crack your shell? You know, it's your protective shell, right? It's protecting you. It's like, it's safe. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Aileen. Great share. Fiona.
Yeah, I was reminded as you were telling that story about, you know, just it's a human condition to have challenge seeing change. I've done a lot of investing studies over the years in the psychology in stock markets. When the market's going up, you know, most people think it's going to go up forever. They can't envisage a change coming. And then you know, obviously you get these blow-offs. And the same when the stock market's falling, you know, it's just going to go down forever, because again, people can't see around the corners. They can't see the change that's coming outside of what is. And that's the story of the acorn. You know, they've only ever seen acorns, so they can't envisage a change. And it's such a great I don't know there's a word for it. It's just escaped me for a moment there, but that kind of not fairy tale, but analogy thing word. Yeah, it's a great way of telling the story without like depersonalize it so that we can actually process it more easily, and it makes it so much more obvious that of course it's absurd that an acorn's not going to crack and grow into a tree if it's given a chance. But it's, as a human, we struggle with the concept of change on that scale. So yeah, great story, loved it.
Yeah, and you know that there's that thing where we can't actually imagine what we are because we've never been that, right? And an acorn is just potential. We talked about potential energy. It's this potential, but it has no idea what it's the potential of, right? So there's the little acorns going, oh yeah, I've got the potential to be shinier, and I've got the potential to be less angry, and I've got the potential to have my hair better, you know, and appear better. I've got the potential to have a better relationship, you know, and often what happens is that even when it comes to creating, people still get stuck on creating things that are relatively shallow. It's not that they're shallow, but they're relatively shallow compared to the possibility, because we can't actually, our mind can't conceive of the possibility, right? It's like that acorn can't conceive that it could be an oak tree. It's like, I can be a better acorn. I can have better acorn friends. You know, I can be a richer acorn. I can be an acorn that's living in better real estate, you know, maybe closer to the tree, so I'm protected from the rain or whatever. So that's how we go about. We go about our lives thinking that life is all about our circumstances and the dramas, and how do I make my life better is what people often get to, right? So that even in creating work, people will go, oh, I want to make my life better. And if you listen to that, I want to make my life as it is now better, which is still building on the same foundations. It's still about my life, right? As opposed to realizing that actually what we're here to do is realize that the possibilities are much bigger. It's not just about a better job, better financial situation, and whatever, better relationships. All of that is great, but all those things are actually a side effect. Right? So we're getting a lot more advanced here than just the trainings. All those things are actually a side effect of living from our heart, living our truth. Because what's the truth of an acorn? The truth of an acorn is that its purpose is to become a tree. Right? But it doesn't realize that its purpose is to become a tree. And that's what this is all about. And this is what I think Easter is all about, you know, the whole religious thing of Jesus dying and then being reborn, right? It's dying to our old idea of who we are and what we're here to do, of what our purpose is. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Fiona. Faith.
And if the acorn never cracks its shell open and become the oak tree, it can't birth all the next generation of acorns. Like, it's like really connected to like this work with us choosing to be of service. When you get your bridges to act and follow through, even if it feels like it's something selfish or just for you or something, it's really not, because you set the intention to serve the collective. And so it's like when you crack open and become the oak tree, like you can't even imagine how much like light you're going to spread to the world, and how much help you're going to be for so many, you know, millions of other people. I think about that, you know, an oak tree and how many acorns. I'm like, oh my gosh, so many, like couldn't even count them. So that's what it was coming through for me, was like, it's service, you know, you're cracking open and it's in service of the collective still, of the highest good for everyone. So not doing that is actually, you know, it's a disservice. So yeah, it's like really like the only choice.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Faith. And you just perfect segue to the next bit because we're going to do a little exercise and we're going to do it in the main room and then we'll do some brief breakout rooms. Because exactly that, right? We're here to play our part. So if you don't crack open, if you don't serve your purpose, then all that potential energy doesn't get to be realized, right? It's just okay. It's just going to sit there and eventually it'll rot away. Luckily, that rotting away then feeds the soil, which helps other acorns. So in a way, we can't help but serve our purpose, right? But it's a lot more powerful if we can do it consciously. So let's do a little exercise, right? So we're going to do a circle as we do, and hopefully you've got something to write on or something to put your information into. And once again, just touch base with your intention for this session and choose to be of service to yourself and to this space. And I'm just going to give you a number of prompts. In fact, what I can do is pop them in the chat for those that prefer to read rather than listen. Okay, so that's not going to do it. Bear with me. All right, so what we're going to do is just draw an imaginary circle, and we're going to define this as your shell circle, right? So you're in your protective shell. You're the acorn. You've got a lovely, safe shell, and it's safe. It's everything you know. Your shell's nicely polished because you've done all this work, right? And you're feeling okay. There's lots of other acorns around you. You've got a community of acorns, and things are okay. But you're an acorn, right? So this is what I want you to, in the circle, tune into. What's your shell made of? What's your shell made of? What gives you that security? So of course we're relating it to you and your life, and get your answers intuitively. So what gives you that security? What gives you that feeling of safety? So I'll read through all of these and then they'll be in the chat. How has it been dented in the past? You know, what's the wound that you're carrying? Or maybe there's more than one. And what is it that you're protecting yourself from? And also, how does your shell present? You know, what are the thoughts, feelings, behaviors? How do you behave when you're in your shell? When you're nicely in the safety of your shell, how do you present in the world? What does that look like? And I'll just give you about 3 or 4 minutes to get down any thoughts. I suggest that you write in point form and then you can add to it later. But if it comes out flowing, that's okay. Let's gather your last couple of things on that. And what's your shell made of? How's it been dented? What are you protecting yourself from? How does it present? What are your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that arise from those wounds, from the things that you're protecting yourself from? All right, so we're just going to close that circle. And remember, when you hop off, you can go back to it. You know, you've got the prompts. You can take a screenshot if you like of the prompts, and you can get a bit more. And we will do some breakout rooms where you'll get more from other people as well. So we'll just close that circle for the moment. And now stepping back into innocence. And now let's create another space. Remember, a circle is a space where we receive information, right? So a vacuum, everything's been sucked out of this space. It's an empty space so that information can be received. And this circle is going to be you as the oak tree. Right, so in this circle, what you want to tune into is when you were an acorn, what were you missing out on as a result of being an acorn, of having that protective shell? What were you missing out on? What can you see as the oak tree that you were missing out on? And also, what were others missing out on? Right? What were others missing out on? What does your tree look like? What's your true nature? What are you a seed of? Maybe it's not an oak tree. So maybe you'll receive some information about what type of tree you are. What is it? What's your true nature? What's your purpose? And also, how would life be if you grew into that tree? Right? What does it look like when you are the tree? How would you serve yourself and others? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are the behaviors? How do you show up? Right? How do you show up in this space? How do you show up as the tree? So I'll give you 3 or so minutes to tune into that and jot things down. And just gather your last bits of information from that space. Right, and now with that energy, we're going to put you in breakout rooms in groups of 3, just for 20 minutes, right? So it's going to be very quick because it's really powerful to get things for yourself. And it's also very great, powerful, and really insightful to then have other people feed to you a little bit more information, right? So when you go into the breakout rooms, it's going to be very quick. You'll have 6 minutes per person. And you're not going to do circle 1, circle 2. You're just going to read that person. It can flow, right? So you can talk about what's it like, what are they protecting themselves from, what's it like as an acorn, what are their behaviors, and then it might naturally flow into what things look like when they're a tree. What were they missing out on as an acorn, and what's their true purpose, right? So you've got all the prompts there. Just assume that you're just going to do a reading with those prompts in mind, right? So don't get too hung up on the prompts. Just go in and give the person a reading where it can flow between the victim and the creator, however it comes, right? 6 minutes per person in total, and then you'll have 2 minutes debrief at the end for everybody. And then we'll come back to the main room and do a group debrief, right? We've got quite a few people here, but I think if you have a short debrief in the other room, and then we'll come back here and do the last debrief in the big room, that's going to work beautifully. So you've got 20 minutes in total. I'll send banners up at each 6-minute mark. And yeah, just when you get in there, just one person put your hand up and go, I'm going to be read first. And just go straight into it. Don't muck around. All right? Everyone understand? Anyone really confused? You're all good. Excellent. See you on the other side. Can we open the rooms? Awesome.
Do the banners.
Welcome back. I guess the others will start to roll back. Here's everybody back. So hopefully you all got some good stuff. Lots of, oh, look at the smiles. My goodness, I love it. I love close breakout rooms, screenshots. So while you're in this energy, while you're in the energy of that, we're just going to do a quick bridge, right? So just get this for yourself, right? What's the piece of wisdom? You know, what's your obvious next step? What's something you need to realize? What does going into the ground look like for you? You know, the acorn needs to go into the ground to sprout, to crack open. You know, is there a vulnerable action to take? What's next to put yourself on this path? And just jot down whatever you get. Doesn't have to be a novel. Remember, you can come back to it after the session and expand on everything. Yeah. And of course, the message here is, you know, as you keep writing, I'll just wrap up before we have our final shares. The message here is, right, that it takes that cracking open on some level. It takes some kind of vulnerable action, as Miklos referred to before, to grow into that oak tree, right? To serve our purpose, to live our true nature, because that protective shell is there to protect us from stuff that mostly doesn't exist anymore, right? The shell was formed when you were really, really young to protect you from things that you couldn't protect yourself back then, right? But you're now an adult, so that's what becoming an adult's about. It's It's about realizing that you don't need the shell. You can crack open. You can come out and live your true nature and serve your true purpose as whatever it is. And you know, when we used to own a farm a while back, and there was a saying, you know, what's the best time to plant a tree 10 years ago? What's the second best time to plant a tree? Now. Right? And it applies here, right? If you know you're going to build the new house, right? If you know that you're going to live in this, right? If you know that you're going to do it, you know that you're going to build that new house, you know that you're going to build your new life, how much longer do you want to spend in this? How much longer do you want to spend on those old foundations, right? It's ridiculous when you look at it that way. Like if you bought that block of land that I spoke about at the start and there was an old house on it and you knew you were going to build a new house, why would you not do it straight away? Right? Why would you wait and live in the old house for a few years and put up with things not being quite right and then build the new house? And, you know, because who knows? I've actually got a very sad story of a good friend of mine who, you know, her and her husband dreamt about a new place that they wanted to build, and they did, and he passed away a year later, right? And it's a tragic story. I mean, it breaks my heart that they worked really hard and worked up to this, and then built their dream place, and he passed away, and literally, you know, from diagnosis to his final day was like 9 months. So didn't really get to enjoy the new house. So, you know, and I share that story not to, you know, not to, what's the word, benefit from another person's tragedy, but it's to prevent further tragedies, right? Of people not living their true life, not stepping into it straight away, you know, buying into the fear, getting closed up in that acorn shell and not allowing it to crack open. Like, why bother? You know, now that we know, why bother doing anything else, right? Why bother doing anything else? So that's my message for this Easter. It's like, don't fuck around. That's my message to me, right? And my message to you. Like, there's really no point fucking around. This whole thing of, oh, can I? Should I? Maybe I'll just do this much and not the whole thing, you know? So whatever steps you got, take it. Plant that tree now, you know? Best time was 10 years ago, but the second best time is now, not in another 10 years, right? So just do it. Yeah. So we'll have some final shares because I'm sure you've all got lots that's bubbling up for you, and it's good to concretize what you got so that you bring yourself here, and so you carry it through. You know, don't leave it in this space. Make sure you carry all the learnings into your life, into tomorrow, the next day, the day after. You know, into your weeks and months and years that follow. But before we have our final shares, I do want to tell you about a couple of things. Nick's just joined us. Thanks, Nick. Even in the middle of your move from UK. So I'll tell you a little bit about what Nick's doing. I know I haven't prepared you for this, Nick, and we won't stay long. I'll just say it briefly, and I'll tell you a bit about what's coming up in the Creators Collective. So we've got Spirit Guidance with Beverly on Tuesday night, because it's Easter Monday, so Tuesday night Australia time. UK, it'll be Tuesday morning. Beverly Holt leads Great Spirit Guidance, and Applied Magic begins on Thursday night Australian time, Thursday morning in the UK. Applied Magic 6-week course. We've got the intro session on Thursday, and it's a really awesome program. It's a small group coaching program. Right, so one-on-one coaching is great. You know, everyone needs a coach. We all know that, right? I would never, ever be without a mirror, without a reflection, without a coach, again, knowing what I know now. But what I realized last year is that a small group coaching program is such a perfect complement to it. because in a group, in a small group, you know, it's intimate, and at the same time you get the group energy, and you get to receive information from many people, from many, so you get many facets of the same thing. So really powerful. Last year when I ran it, it was a great program. People got great results on one creation that you bring to the program. And it's really centered about action, right? Applied magic. How do you apply this work in your daily life when you're in the middle of a conversation, when you're trying to make a decision? And also, how do you know what that 20% of effort is that gives you 80% of results, right? What's that little push that you need to give that swing for it to do that really big swing? So that's applied magic. We've got the info session on Thursday. Some of you are already in it, which is awesome. Great to see you here. I've got one more place available, or we have one more place available because Ed's co-hosting this one with me at 50% off. So if you'd like to apply for that place, then message me after this, straight after this. Got one more spot left. And from tomorrow, the price is going to keep going up until Thursday. So that's it. And Nick, who's my fellow Razor's Edge member, client, I don't know, who's, as a result of this work, you'll see some of his posts in the group. He's just joined the group recently because I asked him to, because he's doing some awesome work with creating art pieces for people with their portrait and all of their victim and creator bits all around it. An awesome reminder to have on a wall. So keep an eye out in the group for posts from Nick about stuff that he's creating from his creator now that he's moved out of his corporate environment into creating magic on canvas. So thanks for joining us, Nick. All right, so that's it. Now coming back to the topic of today, which is cracking open. And of course, the bridge being vulnerability, right? What does it take to crack open? We've already discussed it. And that's vulnerability, to go into the, I don't know, I don't need to know, right? We know the end result, but how we're going to get there, we don't know. And it takes vulnerability. So what did everyone get today? What did you get? What would you like to concretize? What would you like to share? What would you like to speak? Sonia, you're going to kick us off, and then Ursula and Faith.
Thank you so much for today, Beata. That's been really, really amazing. One of the things that it just follows on just from what you've just said about vulnerability, when you were telling the story about the acorn, what occurred to me was, you know, the acorn said, I have to go into the ground to become the tree. And it was like, we have to go into the unknown to become the tree. So that was kind of that vulnerability. So that was what I wanted to share.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sonia. Yeah, we have to go into the ground until we don't know that world, right? The acorn doesn't know that world. And but what are the consequences of not doing it, right? You're not fulfilling your purpose. It just stays an acorn, never turns into a tree. Yeah, so we need to, that's exactly what needs to happen. Yeah, thanks, Sonia. Ursula, what did you get?
Thank you, Beata, for a wonderful session. I got a lot from the shell, you know, how protective it is, how thick it is, and how comfortable I am hiding behind it. And you know, the reading was amazing. My ladies who read me were just so spot on. We got the same image of me as a tree. I got the lime tree, and we all got together, you know, very similar reading of a nurture. The tree is giving the nurture to so many creatures, all the creatures, because there are bees, there are birds, you know, nesting there, and there's a shade for people. And I got also, you know, the lime tree, it can be made, like you can make tea, which is really like comfortable and has healing properties. And the unknown to me is, I've been preparing for quite a long time to actually change from something, my current job, my current career, which served me for many years, but it does not seem to serve me anymore. into unknown territory, which is more going to coaching medical professionals, you know, helping to get out of stress and overwhelm and burnout. And that tree nurturing, you know, is just such an amazing symbol of that nurturing and, you know, caring and being there for all the creatures. So it's a wonderful reading, and the bridge came very strongly. That just get off my ass and start actually making sure that people know I exist, because I've been preparing myself, but you know, nobody knows that I exist.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what you got there is really the completion of the hero's journey, isn't it? Because the hero's journey is getting the wisdom and then bringing it back home, right? So what you're talking about there is having been, see you, Catherine, having been a medical professional, then gaining your wisdom, which other medical professionals don't have, and then you're bringing it full circle back to your community to serve them, to serve other medical professionals, which is exactly what it's about, right? It's about gaining the wisdom and taking it back, sharing it with others. Beautiful share. Thanks, Ursula. And yes, get off your ass. Exactly. You've got a ready-made audience, right? People already know you. And you already have authority. So yeah, it's just about doing it, right? That's absolutely it. Just doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely needed. Thanks, Ursula. And Faith. See you, Aileen.
So my bridge was to share, of course. So I'm here to share and follow through.
Love it.
So I was, you know, I made the intention, I'm going to share what I need to share. And it became obvious where I needed to start. And that was to share about the path that I'm creating. It's called The Path, and something I've started working on. We're still in very, very gestation phase, but I've, you know, Fiona, Nick, Beata, Ed, so many other creators that, you know, I've been reaching out to, and it's very much in the readings today, you know, my group read, you know, like, oh, with my shell and the oak tree, and just like the hiding and not really wanting to be open. And when we were sharing today, when we were going into circles, something, I know I haven't shared directly what the path is. That's something I'm going to be creating, right, to share with the collective, to really share what that is. But what the bridge that came through to share that I want to explore, and I'd love to explore with other people, is that William's work is the bridge to interdimensional realms. And we draw circles. And I would really love to explore what happens when you draw the Star of David and step into that. When you draw a normal star, when you draw sacred geometry and step into that, what wisdom comes through from that? Because with structure having integrity, the structure of the portal that you're stepping into, because in an interdimensional realm, a circle is a portal, what wisdom and insight comes through with that information. So a circle with William's work, this is my work specifically with William's work, a circle can theoretically give you everything you need. And I want to explore what these other formations could give you. So that's something that was my bridge to share, was about that, and just wanting to explore that work, because this is my work, right? It's not William's work. This is his work, is the bridge into my work, which is where they were saying is like, hey, there's so much more. And what I was getting was, I was thinking the path that's very three-dimensional, and I'm getting it's multidimensional and a lot more than just three-dimensional path. So that is something. So if you're listening and you're very intrigued, please reach out to me, because I would love to explore this with others, because this work with intentions and with circles, it's given me the integrity to know, in spirit guides, this is true and this is coming through. Therefore, you know, this community is the perfect incubator for that. So yeah, that's
Beautiful.
what I had to share. Thanks.
Thanks, Faith. And that's awesome, right? If you think back to the levels of creativity, there's the low level imitation, high level imitation, then it goes through to where we start to create our own version of our own work, right? And that's exactly the purpose of Creators Collective, is to not just replicate not William's work, right? That's William's work. And it's not to replicate or compete with Creators Academy. It's the launch pad for new ideas, for when people step into their own creative genius and find their own way, find their own paths. Sorry to use the word, the path, but that's exactly what it's for. So awesome. I love it. I love it. It's the space for new creations to be born and expanded on and explored with other creators, right? So absolutely to go, hey, I'd love to do some circles. I've got this idea. I'd love to do some circles with some people about how this could come about. You know, how can I get it out there or whatever? Perfect. That's exactly what we want, as well as exploring the principles of natural success. It's really about expanding on that and taking it to our own places. Like, you know, I look at the screen, and there's quite a few people here that are creating their own thing within the collective. Fiona with Meeting Point, that we're going to have a meeting about next week. And yeah, there's lots of great stuff coming out, which I'm really excited about. Cool. Thanks, Faith. Let's have another couple of shares before we close up for the night. Miklos, yeah, let's hear from you after that. How did you go?
Yes, thank you, Beata, for the session, and thank you for everything that you said at the beginning. And I somewhat got an answer to my question, both intuitively and both from your story, the acorn story, about you know, the rock bottom or not rock bottom. And in a way, I realized that how much generally I am identified with my shell. And in one way or another, if I grow into a tree, or the shell itself, it's going to be a rock bottom because it has to dissolve, it has to crack open. So it's, in one way or another, is just unavoidable. And interestingly enough, I had pretty much from the same reading from Tammy, she said that I had already these sprouts coming out from either side of my acorn self. And I saw myself as the shell, as even as a medieval armor. But what I see and what I get with the last reading is that it's already really rusty, like the one that really is cracking open, and it has this little, you know, when it comes really already broken because of rust. So that's the answer, I guess, for my original question, and I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to realize that it's already broken, right? It's already not working. It was all the stuff that we're living is stuff that was useful when we were 5, right? It's already not working. It hasn't been for a long time. So might as well crack it right open and step into the vulnerability and create something new. Yeah. Great share. Thanks, Miklos. All right, let's have one final share. Who's it going to be? I think it's you, Ed. Unless somebody else is there. Oh, Fiona, did you want to share? No, you're good. I thought I saw your hand up, but maybe it was just your sparkly lights in the background.
I can share.
Go.
It was the readings were amazing. Thank you. And thank you for the session. It was when I saw the topic, it was like, I just had to be there. And firstly, the start of, we're talking about my acorn and things and not wanting to be seen and hiding. And but as I said to the 2 people in my readings, I've never felt so seen as when they did that reading on my tree. It was just amazing, and I just loved it so much. The other thing that I wanted to share was when you were talking about the bridge at the end there, and I'm sort of writing all kinds of things about vulnerability, but nothing was a real kind of definite. And then when someone else was sharing, I just had this sudden epiphany that when I was doing my choices this morning, I've been having a few little health challenges lately, nothing serious, but they're just interfering with another one of my choices. And the bridge this morning, I just got wood, like brown wood tree. And I just realized when people were talking, it's like, oh, it's my tree, it's my oak tree, it's my oak tree. I just understood my bridge from this morning. It was just, yeah. So thank you, everybody. That was amazing.
That's awesome. No accidents, right? Yeah, awesome. Come over here because it's going to be easier. Do you want to share? I feel like there's a share in you.
Yeah, great session. Awesome, well done. I had no idea what Beata was going to. Normally we work together. Beata's just created this without me knowing. So it's like, what's she doing here?
You get to
really good.
participate.
But yeah, this time of year, it's, lots of cultures all around the world celebrate, a metamorphosis, a change, a rebirth at this time of year. And, to create the lives that we really love, we really do have to rebirth ourselves. The dragonfly, I've been fascinated with dragonflies, how they live, some species, several years as an aquatic animal, and they molt several times until they suddenly get this genetic message to climb up on a reed, and then with the sunlight heating up the water that's still in their bodies, it cracks them open and makes their wings unfold, and they're masters of the air. So, like us, when we're living in our perceptual mode, we're living in the soup, in the soupy pond, and we think that's all there is until something happens, some calling, our soul tension calls us and drags us towards the light until we burst open and metamorphosize and become masters of the air. So it takes a cracking open for that to happen. Unless there's that cracking open, it's just the pond.
No creation without destruction. You can't have a dragonfly without that other creature being destroyed, right?
That's right.
You can't. Yeah. So great share. I knew you had a great share in you. Beautiful. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everybody. That was awesome. What a powerful session for Easter, and what a way forward into the next chapter. So let's do the traditional natural success. We're creating our own nation here. Natural success thing. Unmute, say goodbye, make some noise. And for those of you watching the recording, hope you enjoyed it and hope you get all the great stuff for yourself. And of course, if you want to do the exercises with somebody, then just put a message in the Creators Collective, just put a post up, and and also share in the group. So whatever insights you had, put a post in the group or share under the recording, because it helps to build the group energy and really grows everybody else's learnings.
And gets you known in the community as well.
Yes, you get to really connect on a deeper level. All right, and remember, Applied Magic Thursday night, and Spirit Guidance Tuesday night. All right, let's make some noise, and we'll see you next week in something or other. See you, everybody.
Lots of love.
Amazing.
Yes, happy whatever you celebrate. Happy Easter.
Happy cracking open.
See ya.
Love it.